The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott here with Beyond the Leash Dog Training and the Quirky Dog. It's the first time I've done the intro. I don't usually do this, but we're gonna have today Stephen from Georgia from Farm Hounds. And one thing I saw on his website that I chew on myself on occasion is that dried tripe. I love dehydrated tripe.
We love feeding tripe. And the quirky tip of the day, you guys, is to check out Farm Hounds. If you have not heard of the company before, there is actually a link in the description. And this company I've heard great things about. We had products sent to us. They're awesome. The samples are great. Our dogs are going crazy for them. So we're going to hear all about it today from Stephen. Stephen, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. So tell us, you're co-owner of this company, correct?
Correct.
All right. So tell us a little bit about what Farm Hounds is for people who have never heard of it before.
Farm Hounds is a pet treat company. We focus on treats and chews sourced directly from family farms, farms that are practicing regenerative agriculture, humane farming practices. And going into this, we knew, transparent sourcing was something we wanted to connect where your treats are coming from to the farm that we worked with to sort of make that product. So everything that leaves our door, everything that we make and produce has the name of the farm we worked with to create that product. And so that's sort of where the concept came from, Farm Hounds, and just kind of connecting people to farms. And as we grow, we're adding more farms. So this isn't just with one farm. You'll see that we work with a lot of different farms. It started very regional for us, but as we started to look at products and find other farms that were doing different things on like a regenerative agriculture scale that was a little bit larger, we were able to source more products and things like that. So you'll see a lot of variety of different farms. A lot of our customer base sort of loves to sort of see which farm they're going to get with that order. So you do see some variety there, which is always exciting.
Yeah, it's like a winery almost.
It just reminded me, I used to get dog food when I lived in California from a meat processing plant that was in Northern California. And once a month, he would make a trek down south with a flatbed filled with dog food for everybody. And the interesting thing, since he was a meat processing plant, he had people bringing him ostriches, all kinds of animals that not everyone is going to raise on their farm, but he was getting all kinds of different animals. So it was neat. You could order pig's feet, or you could order an ostrich or whatever you wanted, So it was interesting to change it up a little bit.
And I want to get into some of these products that you do online. But before we move on, you guys have some in-person stores in Georgia too, right?
Yep. So we started in dog daycare, a decade ago, kind of looking at, the whole dog experience, trying to figure out sort of that daycare space and doing some retail and falling in love with retail. We opened up some retail stores called the Whole Dog Market.
Okay.
And those are in Atlanta. We have 3, soon to be 4 locations. And that was something that we sort of focused on, sort of nutrition and what dogs need. And definitely as the raw boom started to happen and more people started to move towards raw diets, sort of educating people along that and kind of working through some of that. So from there, we kind of fell in love with making treats, and we can get into sort of the history of sort of that relationship with our first farm partner. But ultimately, from daycare to retail to our own treat line. And
cool.
That's sort of
yeah. So it makes me want to go to Georgia. But if there's any Georgia listeners that live nearby and you haven't been yet, I love the concept, and it reminds me of Whole Foods almost, the Whole Dog Journal. This is a holistic approach. So that's awesome. Exactly. So there's only those locations, the Whole Dog Market, going to be 4 of them, which is awesome. In Georgia, you can't find those anywhere else. But if you want to order the treats online, you can. So tell us a little bit about your customer, what they like, a little bit about your variety, and whatever you want. You take it over.
Yeah, for sure. We sort of have a couple different categories. We do a bagged product. It's 100% animal ingredient. We don't do fillers. We don't do preservatives. We don't do chemicals. This is pastured product. These are from small family farms. And so it's kind of fun as we get into sourcing and looking at like what farms can, produce for us. A lot of these farmers, they actually use a processing center. So a lot of times we're saying, hey, we can actually, use some of this product that you're not getting back from
Yeah.
the processing center. And so we've sort of peeked behind the curtain a little bit and kind of seen the difficulties. We've been working with a farm, in Indiana, that it's taking us a long time to sort of get shipments because they're having to sort of work with their processor, the USDA side of it, and making sure that, there's so many rules and regulations that they have to sort of fight against to get product back that, is theirs. But because the processing center has rules and regulations,
Right.
it sort of changes the conversation of what's available to us. So we're having a lot of fun just sort of fighting it and figuring it out and trying to work with farms. Because to me, it's, I want those dollars. For us, it's like supporting these farmers. And especially with the way COVID hit, and some of them were tied very heavily to the restaurant industry. And so we're seeing, that there's a space for us to come in and help these guys and provide sort of more dollars for each animal. We're using things they normally would compost. We would get to work with White Oak Pastures. They're down in Bluffton, Georgia. They actually have their own abattoirs on site. So they're doing all of their processing in-house. So that's a whole different ballgame where we can actually get stuff a little bit quicker. But we make a lot of bag products. Just to kind of get back to that question, we do a lot of chews. Chewing is one of the most beneficial things you can do for a carnivore. It's cleaning teeth, strengthening gums, mental energy, physical energy. Endorphins get released in a dog's brain if they can chew for more than 15 minutes. And so,
and it keeps them out of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So, when you're on a Zoom call and you're dealing with work stuff, you got your dog chewing on stuff, which is always really important. And then we've launched recently basically a food topper. We've been talking with White Oak about sort of capturing blood and dehydrating blood as a food topper. And so we've started to sort of grind things up into a fine powder and bottle it and basically launched some liver and some blood options for toppers, which has been a very fun thing. A lot of our raw feeders get really excited about sort of those types of additions that they can add into their food. So.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I'm a pescatarian, which sounds stuffy, but living in New England, it's great. But I haven't eaten meat for over 12 years just for animal rights reasons, but we do feed a raw diet. So my question is, what is the benefit of the blood? I'm pumped about the blood. I know the benefit of the organ.
It's got a lot of iron in it.
Yeah, well, let me hear it from Stephen.
So, the topper side, the first thing I would pitch it for you is it's just going to create excitement, right? So right off the gate, you're going to get scent. You're going to get something that gets the dog a little bit more interested to say like, whoa, what was that you just added in? There definitely is nutrition that carries, and we do, look at those things. We do a dehydrated process on everything. So I know there's a lot of different styles of treats out there. When you have air dried, dehydrated, you have baked. We've opted to go towards the dehydrated route just because it puts us in a little bit of a safer category when it comes to just humans handling product.
Salmonella issues, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So when you go into, air dried, you're kind of living right below that 140 degree mark. And so we go into the dehydrated. So for us, the topper side is definitely priority one is excitement. You have picky eaters. The secondary is that you are adding in nutrition. You're not getting the same level of nutrition if you were to do it on a raw level. So we're not going in and trying to claim, hey, this is what we're trying to do. But what we always kind of look at is what do our farm partners have that they're not able to sell and not able to move. And our relationship to our farmers are definitely going to be the driver for us to say like, hey, if we can buy blood that you are just putting back in the soil, and most farmers are trying to figure out how to, again, keep things full circle and not let things go to waste. So you'll see a lot of things go to compost, a lot of things go back to the soil, but they only need so much of that to go back to soil. So that's where we can come in and say, hey, if we can pay you guys for stuff and build that relationship, you guys can hire more workers. And it's a very fun, I always think of it as a very romantic story of being able to sort of come in and work with these farmers that we always thought we would sort of be pestering them in 2021.
Yeah.
That we would be annoying them, but we realize that there's a space for us.
And it's collaborative too.
Yeah, we're working with another farm partner just with, if you look at the way hens are raised, egg-laying hens, basically they have to basically purchase females, and roosters are annoying. They don't produce a lot of meat. There's a lot of frustration there. And so we were able to come in and say, hey, if you guys want to start breeding on property, we'll take all your roosters. And so allowing them to sort of change what they're doing. And these are pretty cool regenerative ag farmers that are doing some pretty cool stuff. So the fact that we get to tie to that and work with them has been a really exciting journey.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I want to say I just happened to have bought a bag of blood meal for my plants because I like to grow weed. It's legal up here. And so that's a strong form of nitrogen. So I got a bag of, small bag of dehydrated blood meal. And it's great. I mean, to give it to the dogs the way, what you're thinking. The other thing that just popped into my head, which you may have already thought about it, but with all of the preppers, these people that are like the 5-gallon buckets with this stuff that they're keeping in their basement for when the end of the world comes, which some people feel is not too far in the future. With your dehydrated dog products, you might be able to vacuum seal them and as a prepper for your dogs, for if something happened, because it will last. I mean, how long will a dehydrated piece of tripe last? Have you figured that out, or?
It's funny because with dehydration, it's a really powerful tool that you can make things shelf stable for a really long time. We use a water activity meter to sort of test products to make sure that things are getting as dry as they need to be to where
they last.
Mold, and things can't grow on them.
Right.
So it's something where we're able to sort of test those things. I have products from like the very beginning in my office as sort of just as a memory kind of from where we came from.
Yeah.
But those products are still
a piece of tripe hanging on the wall.
Stable. Yeah, exactly. And so, most of our customers use the product within 30 days. So it's not something that you're looking at long-time storage. If you do want long-time storage, we tell people that you can throw it in the freezer. We don't use, pesticides or chemicals. And so your big culprits really are, if you keep it in a cool, dry place, then moisture is not an issue. Anytime you reintroduce moisture to dehydrated product, you're going to encourage mold growth.
Do you put the dehydration packs in with your stuff to eliminate any moisture that might get packed with it?
We actually use an oxygen pack. And so those are things where you can actually research oxygen versus moisture, but because the stuff is as dry as it is and the type of bags that we use, getting oxygen out ends up creating a little bit more of a stable environment, especially for transport when you're going to different humidity levels and things like that. So that's basically the process with our bag products. But even with our loose, those are just wrapped in paper when we ship them.
Sure.
But they'll, pests and like bugs and stuff are going to be the other thing that's interested in it because we don't use pesticides. So again, long-term storage, we tell people use freezer. And dogs don't mind freezer, frozen stuff, raw bones, those kind of things.
Yeah, for sure. So your client, what is like a main product that people look for? A little bit of variety in the actual products so people start recognizing terms when they see them on the site.
Yeah, for sure. Our bag product being strictly animal ingredient, it's all single source protein. So we get a lot of customers that have allergies trying to avoid certain proteins or trying to introduce certain proteins. So that's great for that. It's also very high value. So you see a lot of trainers, a lot of, dog walkers trying to get things that captivate a dog, get their focus, get their attention. If you take a piece of, beef liver, beef heart, take it on your walk, your dogs are going to just be staring at you the whole time going, all right, what do I got to do to get that? And so I always love when customers sort of experience our product and realize that there is a drive that you can kind of tap into with that carnivore, that if you give them the correct treats for those correct situations, not only do you have a better relationship with your dog and you start to do more with your dog, but your dog's ultimately paying attention, a little more pumped about, snacks and treats. And
well, and I thought that when you mentioned the toppers, because like blood trailing is a thing for a lot of dogs with antlers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like they're bred to seek out these things. They're bred to seek out these smells. Like this is truly instinctually like why we have dogs. And the more that people recognize that and know that, not only is your treat healthier than giving Bill Jack, but you actually have engagement. You actually have something on the street that you may not have had before. So
that's why the dogs dig up the garden bed.
Yeah.
After they've fertilized.
Yeah. And then we sell a beef hide roll. So basically this is 100% natural hide. And that's probably the most durable chew on the site. It's definitely our most popular. And that comes from White Oak Pastures down in Bluffton, Georgia. And we've been able to work with them to sort of help develop this chew that, again, raw hides are a little bit of a trigger word. And a lot of times people
especially to us.
I get all stressed out.
Yeah. And so, and safety is always a big conversation because we're always trying to write descriptions and language that kind of encapsulates everybody's dog, which has different energy, different chew styles, different supervision. So
different jaw strength. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the thing that's great about the hide is that it is so durable that if you do like a 5-minute session just to kind of gauge what does my dog do with it, how do they behave, okay, they only made this much of a dent, you're able to sort of understand how you can manage this sort of chew so that it benefits you just as much as it benefits the dog.
Yeah, without having a problem.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people think that like, a chew is what you give your dog when you leave your house. And most people don't realize that once you leave your house, your dog goes into sort of a hibernation mode where they're just storing energy and waiting for the next schedule to, event to occur, which is you coming home from work or a dog walker coming in. And so a lot of times it's, my dogs do the most of their chewing when I come home from work and they ambush me and they've got all that energy. And so rather than sort of squashing their energy, I can say, hey guys, here, let's redirect here. I'm going to go put food on the, get food together, do whatever needs to be done when I get home from work, and let them have something that they can jump into, burn some of that energy, and then we could do our walk or move to the next part of the day, which would be, fetch or playing outside for the weather.
Yeah, and furthermore, they're supervised. Maybe even more importantly is that, your stuff, there's never a guarantee with anything you give their dogs that it's going to be safe, bottom line. We make more durable treats, we make more durable toys and everything else, and that is how I first heard of you guys, with some strong working dog people, with Belgian Malinois, with dogs that are going to pop a tooth on a marrow bone or something, and it is kind of a concern, what can I give this dog to enjoy that isn't just a rubber toy? And they are aggressive chewers, and these products do work for them, but it's not something that you would just leave them alone with. And a lot of my concern sometimes is with the bully stick, now they actually make the product at the end to put on the bully stick so dogs can't, get obstructed from it and everything else. Marrow bones, they can get stuck sometimes, they can chip a tooth.
Yeah.
I got into knuckle bones for a while. I was like, oh, this will be safer, this will be great. And the dogs are weeding away as they do get to the knuckle bones. And then at the end, they were like, oh, it's only an inch long. And I'm like, oh my God, this is obstructable, so there's no perfect anything, especially if you have an aggressive chewer. But if you have a product that is going to last longer than 30 seconds, that's a better bang for your dog and for your bank account. That's just the bottom line. It just gets to be a waste. We bought pig ears the other day. They're like potato chips. It's crazy,
Yeah.
So,
and not good for the dogs either. We know that. They get a lot of preservatives in them. So that's a real special treat because it's not a good thing to give your dog, I don't think.
Sourcing is a huge deal. And that's why we went to raw and why a lot of people have gone to raw from kibble. And when you source a treat differently, it's just going to be healthier overall. Can you talk a little bit about proteins and stuff? Because people get freaked out about hearing ostrich and all this random stuff. But just a little bit why that we feed these certain proteins and maybe how it'll spark a dog's interest. And like you said, with the allergy stuff, it's huge.
Yeah. So, currently we don't do a lot of exotics just because, again, we can talk a little bit later about the kind of the regenerative ag side, which is a big part of us. And so we're still, again, as, we bump into more and more farmers and figure out what's available. But the more you can get into the exotics and things like that, with allergies, chicken is the number one protein allergy, beef is number two. And so a lot of people are sort of figuring out with itching and scratching and, and digestive issues, sort of eliminating certain proteins. And if you can give your dog something they've never had before, typically the likelihood of them, having an allergy towards that is very rare, very limited. And so it kind of helps you get on something that they're not going to have an issue with, and then you can sort of eliminate sort of from there. So it's always fun when you can give somebody, totally different, totally new, and you can kind of experience it.
Yeah.
We just always recommend that you sort of go slowly into those experiences just to kind of gauge how the dog behaves with it. So.
Yeah.
Have you tried fish at all?
So it's funny, we have about 300 pounds in our freezer right now for testing. This was right before COVID happened, and we have seen just extreme growth ever since COVID hit, with more and more people sort of shopping online. And so we don't actually have time
to explore that,
even test that product yet. However, we are bringing on some equipment that's going to allow us to sort of have a more efficient process with our dehydration and stuff like that. And so it's on our books for 2021 to launch something. The other thing with us, the way we source about regenerative agriculture, and is this beneficial to the earth? And is it something that helps the environment? And look what these farmers are doing. And so X, Y, and Z, you can kind of tie to that story.
Right.
With fish, it's a little bit of a different conversation because there is this wild versus farmed language that we're trying to learn and seeing what happens with different, fisheries and what happens with carcasses and leftovers. And is this flushed back into the ocean? Okay, it is flushed back in the ocean, creating dead zones. So can we develop something that dogs would consume and love and enjoy that would keep this from getting back to the ocean? And so there's things like that we're going to always take an environmental approach and look at sort of what we could do. That could we create something that it might be farmed, but if it's something that is done at a level that's just super, super quality. And these are like small farms. There's a little place that does catfish in Louisiana, I believe, or no, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And we've been talking with them about potentially looking at carcasses and things there.
They get big, those catfish too. They can get to be very big. Yeah.
It is farmed, but there's a sustainability to it. And there definitely is a movement in the fish space that wild doesn't necessarily mean better. And if you can do things appropriately. And so we're still educating ourselves on that space before we sort of launch into it, because again, we want to tie to the environment and make sure whatever we're doing is something that's good for the dog, but also good for the planet.
It sounds like having a socially conscious business is a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah, I would much rather try to sell you something that's good for you and your dogs than something that is just mediocre and everybody's
Or
doing
something
it.
that could actually kill your dog. And then you say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, we've killed 48 dogs this month and we're recalling this product.
Yeah, that never should have gone into your house. Well, the thing is, and this is funny, this is how Scott processes versus me. So his was a joke. But I was going to say thank you, because this to me is the most important part. Like, I think we're in a point in our lives right now in February 2021 where, like, we do have to look out for each other. Like, this is kind of where we're moving. And we say the same thing all the time within the dog industry. Like, dogs are suffering. Dogs are going into shelters. Dogs aren't trained as well as they used to be. Like, if we're not collaborative in some way, shape, or form, and we're just in it for ourselves, it isn't going to be the best for the future of dogs or dog food or dog diets or anything. So thank you for going that extra mile. And not only is it a great product for dogs, but it's helping the farmers, like you said, which is like a huge plus benefit right now after such a hard year. So I think it's awesome.
I'm sure it's a little difficult, like you said, getting some of these products away from them, that they're using it in their fields, you know, the blood and things like that. So you got to be...
The biggest challenge there is that they didn't even know that they could have sold it in the first place. So these processors, you know, end up holding on to that. Either they're tossing it or, you know, so it just depends on how that system is set up. And so it's funny when we sort of turn over a list of products like, hey, this is things we can pay you for. And they're like, oh, well, let me talk to my processor. And the processor,
we would like to get paid. Yeah.
Well, so, you know, whether the processor wants to train the team there to how to, you know, source those things. And, you know, it's this big battle of, like, you know, whether the processor will do it. And so we're running into farmers that have all their processing in-house, and that's a lot easier. So White Oak is very unique because they do all poultry and all cattle in-house. Right. And so that's something where we're able to work with them a little bit more closely. And we were able to talk with them about blood, where you couldn't do that with somebody who is sending their animals, you know, to a processing center. So,
you know, it's interesting with the gentleman that I was buying all my stuff from in California that had the exotics and all this and that. I'm pretty sure that all of the dog food he sold was a cash business, because that was all the stuff that you couldn't sell. It wasn't human grade. The tripe that's got stuff in the stomach still. You know, it has to be bleached to become human grade.
Well, and that was 15 years ago, and raw has advanced. Everything has advanced since then. So we're able to legally buy this product from you. It's sourced well. It's humane with the animals. It's helping the farmers. And most importantly, it's helping the dogs. So I just think it's just a win-win-win everywhere.
The best part is that if people take advantage of his 20% off too, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'll let him announce. So tell us about your subscription box. You had something on the site or something?
Yeah, so we definitely have some subscription options as well. Some of our customers, they don't want to have to get on the website every month, and they want stuff just showing up at their door. So we have a mixture of different boxes that kind of allow you to kind of mix and match. You can also, any individual item can be added to a subscription as well. So we have a lot of customers that want X, Y, and Z sort of added into their box. And so pretty much if it's on the site, it can be turned into a subscription item, and you can deliver it on any frequency. You can cancel at any time. There's no like long-term commitments or anything like that. You know, we come from the dog, you know, business. And for us, it's like, how can we do what's best for the customer and what's best for the dog and make things as easy and as clean as possible. So, you know, we're always looking, and again, we're a small team. And so we're always figuring out our website. How can we make it easier? How can we make it cleaner, you know, from searching for the right products? But yeah, subscriptions are available. Gift cards are available if you wanted to just, you know, test that out or give it to a neighbor or dog walker, stuff like that. So we you know, try and always figure out what makes things a little bit easier for everybody, you know, on that side.
I have a question.
Go for it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, when you open up your dehydrated tripe, how bad is the smell? 1 being no smell, 10 being, well, non-dehydrated tripe is a 20. So we're talking a 1 to 10 on dehydrated. Go ahead.
It's the funny thing about you asking that question is we got that tripe from White Oak Pastures.
Did you throw up when you got it?
No, because, well, so I actually ended up getting COVID and losing my sense of smell, and it has not returned to me yet.
Oh, so this is a bad question for you.
Literally the day we got that tripe in from White Oak,
stopped.
That was like my day back to work. And I was like, and everybody was like, oh, we got tripe in. And I was like, oh, how'd you know? And they're like, oh, because we can smell it. So there definitely is a smell.
Oh my God,
tripe is known for its, you know, smell, but that smell is what triggers that dog.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize that, you know, dogs are totally, you know, locked in based on scent. Taste is such a minimal thing to them, where scent is sort of everything. And so that's where that tripe becomes such a huge valuable tool because of the scent. It's not going to clear the room. You know, from what I've talked to with my coworkers, But there are definitely bags of tripe you'll open up that'll pick you up pretty good.
Yeah, which is why they're such a high value treat. And since you have so many raw feeders, I'll just have to say for our listeners too, probably one of my worst things is tripe in the eye. When you go to open up that thing, like if it comes in a package.
She gets a chub.
Oh my God, you get a chub, you pop it, all of a sudden you got tripe in the eye. You're like, all right, like we need to take a moment. This is a lot. So, and I wanted to talk about, you talked about a little about your customer service. I had actually ordered a gift card from you guys because I had heard great things for a friend. And like, you guys just had a
It never showed up.
Shut up, because it went to someone else. I didn't get you a gift card, my God. But it was like seamless. You know, it was a nice text service, and you guys aren't super spammy, and your site has a great fax question. So I'm really excited about everything. Where can our listeners find your product, and what's the best way for them to become a Farmhounds community member?
Yeah, for sure. Farmhounds.com. So everything's online. We do free shipping on orders over 50. So that's always something where I tell people to sort of target that, get a couple chews, get a couple bags, grab a couple toppers, and then you're there. We do run promos and coupons and stuff through social media. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all those spaces. As we grow, we're looking at trying to do more video content as well. So that's something that we're just, leaning into that and how to share more stories from our farm partners. But kind of the differences that you'll see with our product versus versus other companies that are going to be on the site. Our farm partners are all listed on the site. And so there's a lot of education and information.
Awesome.
I have a question before we wrap it up here. Have you guys, what's the dehydrator stuff that we buy occasionally?
The Honest Kitchen?
Yeah, so we use Honest Kitchen occasionally, and we rehydrate it, and then we'll add some meats to it. It's not just I think you could feed that alone, but we don't feed it alone. But if we're low on something, we'll add Honest Kitchen and rehydrate it. Have you considered, now that you have the blood meal and some other things, you could put together something that just add water and it's a balanced meal for your dog if you wanted?
Yes, we've talked about, so the next step for us after fish, we're looking at lung right now. Lung's another one that
that's
USDA
a good one,
doesn't want to, you have to buy it as waste. So you have to almost sign off on saying, hey, I'm buying this as,
I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the times the USDA inspector does not want to let this leave the plant. And so you're always having to fight that a little bit. And so people always argue about like human grade and terms that are used. Human grade, no, but there's not a definition of human grade. Nobody's regulating human grade in pet food because it's such a odd thing to try to compare. And so for us, it's like, how can we get it from how can I pay the farm for it? And that's the first question. And then, we'll be as open and honest as we can that, hey, look, we have to buy this at this, but it's, literally coming off of a USDA floor, but we just have to buy it and make sure they're not labeling it certain ways. But so we've talked about, complete diets. We will always stay in the supplemental space just because of how much movement we're seeing on treats right now. And when you open up complete diets, there's a different level of regulation there that you sort of have to jump into.
Right.
But again, there's a really high ceiling for us, and we're not sort of opposed to that. But supplemental feeding is definitely a space where we've looked at doing it when it comes to raw bones, all of that stuff that eventually down the line. But right now, everything we get from our farmers, we're selling, and it's all being sold as dehydrated, products. So we're in a good space right now where we're gaining more customers than we are.
And you have the cheapest storage out of everybody. The farmer, the processor. You just need a dry room. That's it.
Yep. Exactly.
I got to tell you, honestly, I've welled up quite a bit during this episode. It's just a topic so near and dear to my heart. I know. Really, though, it's important to me that the animals are treated well and they're respected, and then it's transferring over to the dogs. And when you talked about getting to that $50 mark for people to get the free shipping, if you guys are feeding a treat topper right now, that's mostly where the BS that your dogs are getting. It's like these gravies, and there's a lot of sugars and a lot of fat and a lot of stuff in there. Some people do canned food on top. Look at the blood and look at some of these other treat toppers that are more healthy for your animals. Because if you're putting that on the dog's food every single night, yes, it's not their main diet, but as we know, a picky dog can get pickier. So then the next night they get a little more gravy than kibble. So consider a healthier treat topper for sure to get to your $50. And if you click the link in the description today, that's going to give you everything that you guys sell, right? The Quirky link that you sent me?
Yep, that's going to drop you right on the homepage, and then you can navigate around there. So that link should apply the 20% automatically for your first purchase.
Perfect.
And you can basically add anything to your cart and sort of go from there.
Perfect.
Sounds like you guys have a lot of irons in the fire with your business. You got the retail. The retail must have been brutal with COVID. You guys closed down for a bit and all that.
Yeah, so it was almost an even switch where that slowed down, but our online store picked up. And so it was definitely something where,
lucky.
We also wholesale our products. So if you have like a retail store, that is something we do make products available. So we're in about 400 to 500 stores across the country.
Well, that's great.
And so we're selling a lot of our bulk and bag products there. So that's slowed down drastically. But now as things sort of
are picking up,
yeah, we're seeing a little bit of life. We're seeing orders come through on the wholesale front as well. We also offer 100% guarantee on everything we sell. So it's something where if you try it, you're not happy with it, it didn't impress you the way you thought it was, your dog is going to be, picky towards it. Always reach out to us. We are always asking ourselves, if this was me, how would I want this handled? And we're trying to make sure we're always making those decisions that are best for our customers. So 100% guarantee, free shipping on orders over 50. You also mentioned sort of the emotional side about animals being, animal welfare, which is always a fun part of regenerative agriculture. But if we can talk really quickly just about the soils.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, go. Scott loves talking dirt. I might have to sit out. You guys can talk dirt for an hour.
So, White Oak Pastures is a great kind of resource to look at. And what they've started to do is study the soil there. And what they've tapped into is called regenerative agriculture. So there is industrial agriculture, which just takes from the land, takes.
You mean no-till?
Sustainable means, sustainable is giving what we're taking. And so you're not going anywhere. Regenerative agriculture taps into actually benefiting the land, and you can use animals to do that. And so if properly handled, animals can actually bring biodiversity back to soil. And what happens when you have soil that's alive, it retains more water, it grows stronger grasses, it feeds the animals better. And so there's a circle you tap into.
That cures starvation in the world.
They're actually studying soil now that it captures more CO2 than what's being emitted down at White Oak Pastures. And when you talk about cattle and you're always like, oh, it's emissions. No, at White Oak, they're actually storing more carbon than they are emitting. And so they are actually, a net
negative
for the environment. And so it's really cool to sort of see Regen Ag and actually watch farmers do it. And it's about animals, but it's actually more about soil and what can come from soil that's managed by farmer and animal. So
and it's about life, and it's about just not taking, like you said, which is important, and giving back in some way, shape, or form. I swear you told me the whole regenerative ag story, so I actually cried on the podcast because I had another well up episode. But really, the company, you guys, with the link that Stephen has provided, you guys, you're going to get 20% off of these products. We got some. Our dogs went freaking crazy about it. I'll do a live for you this week so you can see and understand how much they all loved them. And check this link out, check this company out, and think about your own practices. Like, you guys are doing so many inspiring things. I feel like everyone needs to just check themselves. Like, check out your own customer service, check out your own way that you're contributing to the environment, because it matters, you guys. Like, now, if we do not come together collaboratively, even if it's just in the dog world, if the dog world can pave the way, great, let's pave the way. But if we cannot come together, we may have some tough times ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Jess and I are really sticklers about what go into our dogs, way more so than what we eat. We'll have a bowl of ice cream in the evening. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm eating junk food, but my dog is getting the best. And part of the reason for that is I want him to live as long as possible. I know that dogs have a very short life in relation to ours. One of the hardest things that I've ever dealt with is losing my dogs, and yet I keep getting another one and lose them again. And put good food into them. And I say this only because I have met so many people, even veterinarians, that have spent a fortune on dog training, and they're giving their dog the cheapest dog food they can get. What you put in is what you're going to get out. And if we can do anything to help them live a little longer, less medical bills, a good diet, why not? We control what goes in our dog's body, and it's much easier than controlling what goes in our own. That's for sure.
Yeah, and as far as treats go, if you're giving treats a lot, the healthier, the better. Do you guys ship only to the U.S. just so people?
Yes,
know?
right.
Okay.
Right now we're only domestic. We've approached Canada and stuff like that, but there's a lot of weird export laws when it comes to beef organs and stuff like that, and so. We're just not prepped for that yet. So I think we'll focus on domestic and work on adding fish, adding raw, looking at some of those things before we cross over.
Yeah, great. I just want to quell our Canadian
there
listeners
should be enough dogs
before
in this
they go
country
so they don't get sad.
Before we expand into other countries, I think we should be able to make a living here.
Well, I'm gonna go buy them all out of stock. So you guys better click quick.
She's probably going to feed me a dry tripe tonight for dinner.
I'll get him eating healthier. No more ice cream. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen. I'm glad
good to meet
that you guys are keeping it real down there in Georgia. It sounds like everything that's happening is kind of kismet. It was a hard COVID scene, but you're helping the farmers and your business is doing great and you deserve it. So guys, check out the link, feed your dogs, farm hounds, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Steve.
Keep it quirky.
Thank you.
This one sounds sick.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.